Hello, yes, good afternoon, everybody. I hope you can see my screen and at the same time hear my voice clearly. So, today's webinar, I want us to look at the fundamentals analysis, that is news trading. So, the other term used to call news trading is fundamental. So, if you hear someone saying we are analyzing based on fundamental analysis, it means that they're actually monitoring what's happening on news before they can execute their positions. So I want us to look at the best approach towards trading news, what you should do when you want to trade news successfully, when to trade news, and then we're going to look at the charts a bit and what kind of news to be trading, and possibly how news affects certain things or some of the major news you're supposed to give focus to. Those are some of the few things we're going to look at. So the first thing is if you don't understand anything about news, it is better to do your research a lot. Do a lot of research first of all before you even think about starting to trade news. Do a lot of research, not just research, do a lot of very good research. Understand what is happening before eventually you can decide whether you want to trade news or you don't trade news, because there's something which happens during news that you need to be aware of. That is, there is always a lot of volatility. The market moves very fast, and in some cases the spreads are very high. So you may enter trade, you are stopped out without seeing the price actually hitting your stop loss. So that it could happen during news, certain types of news, not all the time, but it could happen. So that's why you have to be very, very, very careful, especially whenever you are trading news. So the first thing, what we do in FreshForex is that we do have an analysis for news trading. There is an analysis. If you come here where there's education, there is analytics. We do have Forex fundamental analysis. This is where we look at news. This is where we focus on news. You can see these are the news that we expect to affect this instrument Euro-USD. This is the same thing, negative economic statistics. This is the same thing on GBP. And then you have Japan consumer. Consumers continue to feel the pain. This is for US dollar. So if you don't understand anything and you want to start faster with news trading, you can just come here, and then you head straight towards the fundamental analysis. So this is where you'll find everything about the news and how they affect that given currency pair or that given currency instrument. So there is something else other than this that you have to know, is that every day we do have a lot of news that is being released. Every day there is a lot of news that is being released. So you need to be aware on the news which you're supposed to focus on. There are three major types of news. There's the first one, we have the high impact news. That is the most important one. It's always where they do have an actual impact and the effect is felt almost immediately when the news is released or just before the news is released. And then we have medium impact news. So medium impact is not as powerful as the high impact news, but they also have some effect. Then we have low impact news. With the low impact news, there is usually, with the low impact news, they don't affect the market as such, or if they do affect the market, it's not as visual as if we were monitoring the high impact news. Even though it also does affect the market, but it's not as powerful as the high impact news. So if you want to trade news specifically, you must be fully aware of the news which is being released. Are we on the same page? You must be fully aware on the news that is being released. You must know that this news that is being released, it affects this given instrument or this currency. And at the same time, if you check our website, the FreshForex website, and you go to analytics, there is the Forex economic calendar. This is where the latest, the current, all the news is listed here. The news that we expect for that given day, all of them are listed here. You can see here. You can see like today. This is the 12th of Wednesday, which is today. So you can see that there is this news which we expect. Let me see. Okay. This color here, this color, the one you see, this means that that is a low impact news. Then there is another low impact news. Then we do have this is a medium impact news, which means it does affect the market, but not as much as the high impact news. Then we have this is a high impact news, and then we also have this, which is another high impact news. So on the left hand side of the indication for high impact, low impact, or medium impact, there is the currency pair. So as I was saying, you have to give focus to the nature of the news, and you also have to give focus to the currency fact that the New Zealand dollar will be declining in value after some time. It doesn't always start to decline immediately, like the direction, just because of the news. It takes some time. It will news, and if you're trading the low impact news or the medium impact news, you'll find, like, if this so as I was saying, you need to focus. There is the first one which happens at the beginning of every month. It is known as the NFP. You need to focus on that mostly. Then if the news also affects the major banks in the world, or the news relates to interest rates of banks or governments, then you are also supposed to focus on those ones. So assuming you read something like this, that is, you find that this is the time that the news is supposed to happen. Let me give you an example. Like this is the time when the news is supposed to happen. Let me get another high impact news, like here. This news is yet to be released, so it is going to be important. Or this one here, this affects the Canadian dollar. We have BOC interest rates. You can click it to find exactly what it means. So Bank of Canada announces a decision on interest rates 8 times a year. It is one of the key key events influencing the Canadian dollar quotes. The decision is made depending on the economic conditions and financial outlook in the country. So changes in the interest leads to short-term volatility of the Canadian dollar. An increase in the interest rates is seen as a positive for the natural currency. Okay, so this is the chart. You can read how it has been going. It has been increasing, it decreased, then it has just increased here massively. So you can see from the statement here that changes in the interest lead to short-term volatility of the Canadian dollar. Short-term volatility, not long-term. Then an increase in the interest is seen as positive for the national currency. So that means that if the news is higher than expected, then we expect that this graph is going to continue to the upper side, which means that the Canadian dollar is going to be stronger and stronger and stronger as time goes by. So short-term volatility of the Canadian dollar. So something else, we know the time when we expect the news. It is at this time. We expect the news at 10. We expect the news at at 17. This is in the evening. We expect the news today in the evening. So this was the previous. If you check at the top here, if you check at the top, this was the previous announcement, this is the forecast, and this is the actual. So let's see what happens. Let's scroll 12th. This is the date. and then this is this is the news we are expecting to be released. This is another. So this was the previous one. We don't have the previous reading for this, and we also don't have the previous reading for BOC red statement. So you can just click here to read more about that news, or click here to read more about that news, or click here to read more about that. But my interest mostly is on this news because it's the only high impact news. So how I would trade this on a real chart is this. I would go to my chart, go to either 1 minute, 5 minutes, or 15 minutes time frame, and 1 hour just before the news, 1 hour before the news, you'll see that the price is either stagnating. So assuming that this is 1 hour just before the news is supposed to pick the highest high and also pick the lowest low, and also pick the lowest low like that. So you're supposed to pick the highest high, and at the same time pick the lowest low. When the price breaks below, if for example when the news is being released just before there is a break out of this range, this is, we are assuming that right now we are approaching 1700, and we do expect a news that affect the Canadian dollar. So assuming that even this is Canadian dollar itself, immediately we are 1 hour, have your zone drawn, have a pending buy stop here, have a pending sell stop here, and also have a pending buy stop here. That is, when the price goes down and triggers the sell stop, you get out of the buy position. And if the price breaks above this line here and we trigger the buy stop, you get out of the sell stop. So that means that you'll have only one trade running, and we do expect that the price is going to continue to the next level, either this one or the upper one. Does that make sense what we are saying? So that strategy looks very, very, very simple, but from my own experience, whenever just before the news happens, we're going to see some consolidation. The market tends to consolidate before it eventually moves perfectly in that given direction. So whenever you expect news to be released and the price is moving in a given direction, and the price is moving in a given direction, expect that the price is going to continue in the direction, especially after the news is released. So when we have something like a break here and you pick a sell position, just ensure you hold onto that sell position up to this point here. There is something else that you have to take into account, that for example, when you check here, now we are still holding on to the Canadian dollar because that's where the news that is, we're assuming it's currently being released. Pick all those instruments that have the Canadian dollar in them. Like pick this, and just a second, there is the card JPY, also pick that one, and there we have Euro card, and then we also have ETH card, Ethereum card, so that I don't give focus so much on that one. Then we have AUD card. So we are picking them for correlation purposes. What that means is we want that when you're trading one thing, the same thing is happening across all the other instruments where that currency is either the base currency or as a quote currency. So when you have a pending buy stop and a pending sell stop here, assuming this is Canadian dollar, US dollar, Canadian dollar, Japanese yen, assuming this instrument here, look for all the other currency pairs where we have the Canadian dollar either as the base currency or as the quote currency. Then have the same setup on all those instruments. Have a pending buy stop, sell stop on all of them. Pick the highest high, the lowest high, and have them all at once. So if, for example, one trade out of those all other trades, if any of them hits the take profit, you step out on all of them, even if the others are still as have not hit take profit or they have not hit the stop loss. And if one trade hits the stop loss, you step out on all of them, even if the others are still winning. Are we on the same page? Are we on the same page? Do you understand what I'm saying? So you step out on all those trades instantly at once, just the same way you'll find that when one zone is broken, the price tends to break below all the others on all the other currency pairs. So that means you'll enter one trade based on one news, but on several charts, and exiting based on the same thing, because you assume that when the take profit is hit on one, it's also hit on all the others. Does that make sense, what I've just said? So it should make a lot of sense. Don't find yourself trading just one instrument at a time. Don't get yourself in a situation where you are trading just one instrument. You're trading maybe just Euro USD while there are several other currency pairs that have Euro in them. Trade also those currency pairs that have Euro in them. That is known as correlation. That is the same thing happening instantly everywhere. That's always the correct time to think of a trade. Not when there is one thing happening on one instrument, while on the other currency pairs where the same currency is listed as either the quote currency or as the base currency, some things are not happening. So we enter only when the same thing is happening everywhere and at the same time. Are we on the same page? So that should bring us to the end of today's webinar. We'll meet again next week on Monday at the same time. Thank you and see you.